YouTube. Today we're working on a 2002 Subaru WRX JDM. So it's a right-hand drive imported into Canada. We're going to be doing the front brakes, calipers, rotors, and pads. Some of the tools you're going to need will be a 17 mil wrench, a 14 millimeter wrench, a 12 millimeter wrench, 3/8 drive, 12 millimeter socket and ratchet. I got a 1/2 inch drive, 17 millimeter flex bar with extension, inch or foot pound torque wrench, scraper, pry bar, and some brake clean. So step one obviously is going to be jack your vehicle up, support it safely. Step two, I'm working on the driver's side here, so I've rotated the steering wheel to the right, which gives me access in behind the caliper here to work. We're going to need to remove the caliper. On the caliper there's a mounting bolt on the top here and one on the bottom, and this one's going to be your 14 millimeter. Loosen those guys off. When you're turning them, if it goes in like this might spin on you, so just pull the pin out and it'll sit on the ear and hold itself in place. Remove those two bolts. Now we need to remove the caliper. You should be able to just wiggle it off. Sometimes they may be stuck and you might need to get a screwdriver in there and pry them off. Now we don't want to strain the rubber hose that holds the caliper, so right now we're just going to tuck the caliper up out of the way. You can use a tie strap. I'm just going to put mine back here so there's no extra weight on the hose. Now we need to remove the caliper mounting bracket, this guy here. So on the back of that, you got two mounting bolts, one on the top, one on the bottom, both 17 millimeters. One down there, one up there. Go ahead and take those bolts out. My new caliper came with new caliper supports here, and these slippers is where the brakes slide on, so we've pushed these into place. And we've applied caliper slide grease. Just a little bit, not too much, and you don't want to get the grease on the inside here where it's going to contact the rotor, so just a little bit on the surface. We're going to go ahead and bolt that up. We're going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on the mounting bolts, and we're going to torque those bolts down to 59 foot-pounds. Okay, we got the caliper support torqued on to 59 foot-pounds. Now we need to install the brake pads. Make sure your fingers are clean when you're doing the brake pad install. You don't want any grease on the brake pad friction surface. Okay, so these brake pads we have, one of them has a, what they call a squealer on the end of it. So when your brake pads wear out, that starts grinding against the rotor to let you know that your brake pads are worn out. Now, what I do is I try and put them back together the same way they came apart. So I look at the old brake pads to see where the squealer was. Was it on the inboard pad or the outboard pad? In this case, it was on the inboard pad. And if I've already banged them out and you can't remember, you can just go ahead and look at the back side and you can see that this one had the pistons up against it. And this one has a little different shape on the back side from the dirt. And this is where the caliper was. So this is an outside pad, and the inside pad is the one with a squealer on it. So easy to see the outside. The inside is going to be the same. We're just going to tuck the brake pad in. Into the support. Now what we want to check for is when this is in, that the brake pad is free. So it moves in and out, and it's not jammed in the support. If it's jammed in the support, you may actually have to check to make sure the slippers are in place properly, that maybe when they manufactured the pad there was no burrs or anything on there that you might have to file off. So it's very important to make sure the brake pad is free, so it just floats in there. You don't want it free that it goes up and down, but you want it so that it comes in and out like that. And we're going to go ahead and put the back one in the same way. Okay, we got both pads in there ready to go. We've turned the slide pins so the ear is flat. Now we're going to install the new caliper. New caliper just fits over the pads. We slide it into place. We might have to turn these pins, and the flat side of the pin lines up right here with a little spot on the caliper. Top and bottom is the same. We're going to go ahead and put those bolts in with a little bit of blue Loctite on those. And on this car, they're torqued to 28 foot-pounds. Don't forget to check your guys' torque specs. They might be a little bit different. Google it or whatever you got to do. Now we're going to install the hose on the caliper. So make sure that the where the hose goes, you remove the plastic cap if it has one. Now we have to remove the hose off the old caliper. I like to leave them hooked up during the brake job so that I don't lose all my fluid out of the car. So now we're going to change the line on the caliper. It's a 12 millimeter. Right here. So we just need to unbolt this, keeping in mind that all the fluid's going to pour out of it. We don't want the fluid to drip all over our new stuff. We've got a drain bucket in place, and I move it off to the side when I disconnect the line. Now, it might be awkward to hang on to and disconnect this, unbolt this bolt at the same time. It might be flopping around. This may be where beforehand you would have had the old caliper on here and just held on with a couple of bolts and to crack it loose. Or what I use to break them free, I just have an impact gun and I just break the bolt free with that. I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, we've taken the bolt out. You see it's dripping the fluid everywhere. So what we want to check for is to make sure that the washers came off the line. The old washers, sealing washers, and they're not on there, so that's good. Now we're going to get the new banjo bolt that came with our calipers. That's what this is. We've gone ahead and we put one washer on beforehand. And we'll go ahead and put a second washer on. Brand new, and you always want to use new washers. So we got the new bolt in there with a washer on the inside, washer on the outside. We've threaded it in with finger tight, and we've lined this little metal tube up on there with the notches on the caliper, just like the old one was. Now you're going to go ahead and give that a snug. And don't forget to, you can look up the torque spec for that. Snug them up till they stop leaking. Like this guy here. And that's it. Your calipers, rotors, and pads are replaced. The last step that we need to do is bleed the brakes. So to bleed the brakes, you're going to find the master cylinder. So the last thing we need to do is bleed our brakes. And you want to start with the brake farthest away from the master cylinder. So in this case, because it's right-hand drive, we want to start with the left front wheel. So we got to go up into the hood and we got to make sure we got enough brake fluid in there. This one's a brake fluid. Read the cap on yours. This one takes .3. We're going to fill the reservoir up. You only want to put brake fluid in out of a sealed container. Clean, fresh, new brake fluid. So we're going to fill the reservoir up. We're going to go back to our caliper. And this is the bleeder screw on top. This one's a 10 millimeter. So we're just going to open this up. And with some luck, hopefully after a couple minutes, this will gravity bleed. So you'll see this starting to drip. It may or may not bleed. We'll see what happens here. All right, it took about 4 or 5 minutes, but eventually on its own, it just started dripping. And this gravity bleeding is a great way to get started. So do that on both front calipers, let them drip for a few minutes. Snug them up. Now this is where you need a helper. I don't have a helper to show you exactly, but what we're going to do is going to get the helper to climb inside the car, press the brake pedal down, and just hold it down. When they're holding the brake pedal down, we're going to stay clear out of the way because the fluid's going to want to shoot right out of here. We're going to open the bleeder screw and it's going to shoot fluid out of here, and we're going to catch it in the bucket. And while it's in motion, they don't let go of the brake pedal, we're going to tighten the bleeder screw up. And we're going to repeat that process 3, 4, 5, 6 times, however many times it takes, so that a steady stream of fluid comes out of there. No more air is coming out. Do that on both sides. Tighten them back up. Clean them off with brake clean. Top up your brake fluid. Check for leaks. Torque your wheels back on. Pump your brake pedal. Take it for a test drive. Thanks for watching.